Good morning and welcome to the first webinar in a series on the health and well-being of children. We are welcoming our esteemed presenters and participants to join us for this webinar, and today's webinar is on the nutrition status of school-aged children in South Africa. The Department of Basic Education, through the National School Nutrition Program, is aware that there's a lot of research on nutrition on children, but it's not always shared with the department. So we created a research platform for some of the researchers to be shared. So in this first one on the nutrition status of school-aged children, we have asked some of our research institutions to join us to present their independent researchers on this topic. Other topics that will follow in this webinar series would include nutrition education, food safety, and quality in partnerships. So today, the key focus would be on the nutrition status. In hosting this webinar, we also have to partner, and the Department of Basic Education must first give credit to University of
Sorry. Hi,
Johannesburg.
Karina.
Yes.
So sorry to disturb. Can I ask if you could please open your camera?
My camera is open.
The
I'm
button
so sorry.
in the camera. I think you might have closed that.
My camera is on. I think it's just a glitch that there's no picture at the moment.
Okay.
So I'll just go on. Thanks, Belisa. So for the first, for the webinar to be hosted, we have joined with the University of Johannesburg, the Food Evolution Research Laboratory, FOL. And what FOL is doing is it is a virtual research facility within the School of Tourism and Hospitality at the University of Johannesburg. FOL is dedicated to translating scientific research into practical solutions to enhance daily nutrition and promote a healthier society. They leverage on cutting-edge technologies such as mobile applications and extended reality, XR. So this is quite technical, and they continue their research to advance research in food and nutrition. So they also launched an extended reality lab at the School of Tourism and Hospitality. So there is our one partner, but I also have to give recognition to the Nutrition Society of South Africa, and I would like you also to register. I don't know if you can share the QR code, but for the NSSA, the Nutrition Society of South Africa, they provide leadership and mentorship based on appropriate research in policy formulation, education and training, and practice of nutrition through advocacy and dissemination of information, with the aim to advance the scientific study of nutrition. So it's very important that if you're interested in nutrition, to become part of the NSSA. Then for today's program, we have been privileged to have two opening remarks. The first remark from the Department of Basic Education is from Dr. Granville Whittle, which is our Deputy Director General for the branch care and support, and where the National School Nutrition Program is hosted. Then following to that would be one of the other key partners that we have, and that is from the Tiger Brands, where Ms. Mary Jane Murifi, the TB Trustee, Chief of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability of the Tiger Brands Limited, will also provide us some background on what it is to partner with the Department of Basic Education, since we have a long partnership that range from breakfast programs, infrastructure improvement, and then research, which one of the researchers will be presented today. I'm going to give over to Dr. Whittle, and then I'm going to request Ms. Murifi to follow directly after him. Just before I give over to Dr. Whittle, you're more than welcome in the chat box to present us with questions, and we'll answer on the chat box if there's questions that the audience provide to us. Thank you, Dr. Whittle. You can go ahead. Dr. Whittle, are you unmuted? It seems I cannot hear Dr. Whittle. Can there be indication, Dr. Whittle?
Hi, Karina. She is not in the audience anymore.
Thank you, then, Belisa. Thank you. Let's then hand over to Ms. Mary Jane Murifi from the Tiger Brands Limited to start us with the opening remarks.
Good morning, participants, and good morning, speakers. Karina, thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words as opening remarks on behalf of Tiger Brands Foundation. I need to correct something there. Although I'm listed as the Chief Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Officer for Tiger Brands, I have gracefully retired at the end of December 2024. I continue, however, to be a trustee of the Tiger Brands Foundation and also in supporting the Tiger Brands Limited with some of the projects that they have on the go. So I don't want anybody from Tiger Brands who's listening to this and saying, when is she going to leave? I have left. And I'm declaring that I'm no longer the Chief Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Officer. My name is Mary Jane Murifi, and I have been involved with the Tiger Brands Foundation for about 8 to 9 years. The foundation itself was incepted in 2010. The first breakfast was delivered in 2011. And this was done in partnership with the Department of Basic Education as a partner. So it's a very long-standing partnership. I was remarking the other day when we were in Bella Bella with Dr. Whittle that he has walked the path. You know, with all the changes in government, he has been a constant contact and partner for us. And we have worked together to look at how do we, as partners, both public and private, improve the outcomes of our school-going children. Why is Tiger Brands Foundation focusing on food? It was initiated and started by Tiger Brands Limited, which is a food company that has chosen that its lane will be on food and food security. And being concerned about the fact that some of the children that we were encountering were not getting sufficient nutrition to enable them to be able to concentrate and therefore have good, positive academic and health outcomes. This is not just about tummy full. It is about ensuring that children get the right kind of nutrition. It's about nutrition education, really getting the learners, the families, the teachers to understand what is on your plate. Is this contributing to the overall health outcome? It started, as I said, in 2011, and between then and now, we have served close to 165 million meals in 96 schools at its highest, at its height. But we have also looked at how do we cannot just continue about our business of feeding, but how do we use this huge body of important information and data to inform policy decisions, to inform budget decisions as government allocates budgets, so that they do it based on data and information that would ensure that the right decisions are made. This has required for us to form further partnerships because we are not researchers. We know about food, we know about delivering food to school kids, but we are not the researchers. So we have also extended these partnerships to include academic institutions that have got reputations, that are able to conduct these research studies. And these research studies are peer reviewed by others. And we are able to share this, not just in South Africa, but globally in general. And this, in the pursuit of ensuring that we share the information to improve the outcomes of the children. As I said, it's not just about tummy full. It's about restoring the dignity of the child as well. It's about constantly improving the quality of the meal through, again, what is understanding what is in your plate, what's in your plate, and also how the meal, the environment within which the meals are prepared. Is it a healthy, hygienic environment? And then the training of the food handlers to ensure that they know what it is that they are doing. With all of this information, it enables us to be able to then jump into the advocacy space. And this we do, as I said, by commissioning research studies, both on the baseline and longitudinal, through these institutions with good reputation. And with the information, we are able to improve and structure our models of school nutrition in a way that takes into consideration some of the learnings that the data and the research has provided us. Partnerships, very key. Both public and private, together with the Department of Basic Education, representing government, academic institutions, and the private sector. And I'm very proud to say that one of our very committed partners in this space is the Star Foundation. And they have adopted the Tiger Brands Foundation in school nutrition feeding model. They are in 8 schools, serving about 7,800 learners in the Hazyview area in Mpumalanga. But they did more than just feed the children. They actually commissioned the study last year called The Effect of the In-School Breakfast Program on the Nutritional Status of School Children in Mpumalanga. As I said, this cannot be just about feeding and tummy full. It has to be about what is the outcome, what is the long-term outcome that we are looking for. We all talk about children as our future. We should also treat them as our present and ensure that we begin to build that future now. And I hope that what you will be hearing today from the various research programs that have been done, the one that I said, done by the Star Foundation, and others I'm sure will present other studies. These will help us to be able to package a model, to be able to package data and information that we can share with the Department of Basic Education. Information that will influence policy, as I said, information that will influence budget allocations, but information that will also help government decide what are the priorities and what is the mandate as we look at ensuring that this future generation of ours is actually a productive future that will begin to create the South Africa that we all want to live in. So I'd like to give a shout out to the Star Foundation for the partnership. Long may it go on, and we hope it will keep growing and growing. But also to give a shout out to the Department of Basic Education. They've been on this path with us. I was so proud when I was asked to present at the conference a few years ago in Cambodia, and with international organizations presented their school nutrition program. I was proud that South Africa's in-school nutrition program stood out, because here was one example where government played its part, where the private sector played its part, where the academic institutions played their part, and in giving, and not in because they were able to get benefits out of that. So I said to my colleagues, we should stop criticizing government for not doing much. We are very easy and quick to criticize ourselves. But when we begin to compare ourselves, like I did in Cambodia, I was proud to be South African. Let's continue on this path. Partnerships. And I'm hoping that these partnerships will last for many, many years to come. And with that, Karina, thank you very much for allowing Tiger Brands Foundation to do these opening remarks, but also for the partnerships that the university and the research institutions have shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murifi. That was very well done, and we also appreciate the long-term partnership that we have joined with Tiger Brands Foundation. And now I see Dr. Whittle is in the room. Dr. Whittle, can I hand over to you?
Okay, I'm sure you could hear me now, Karina?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Whittle. You can go ahead.
Okay, so my apologies that I've joined late for some reason. I just really struggled, to connect this morning. I'm not going to take much time. I really appreciate the comments that Mary Jane, has made. Just to say that we in the Department of Basic Education obviously run the National School Nutrition Program, quite a big program. We now have a budget of 10.3 billion allocation for this financial year. We feed just under 10 million children a day. We now provide 2 meals in most of our provinces. A breakfast porridge that we serve early in the morning, and then we serve a cooked lunch. We've also been allocated since last year some funding from the Treasury to pilot the introduction of a nutrition program for ECD centers. We're in the process of finalizing, that menu, and we're hoping that later this year we'll start rolling out that particular pilot in a district in 1 or 2 of our provinces. And so, as Mary Jane has said, a lot of the work that we've done together with some of our universities, and in this case, University of Johannesburg, and the Tiger Brands Foundation has helped us tremendously in terms of shaping both the menu, the logistics, the structure of the program that we roll out. And of course, we'll rely quite heavily on you as we proceed to introduce the ECD nutrition program. So thank you very much. I really appreciate these kinds of discussions because I think they're valuable to us in terms of the evidence that they provide and how the evidence that we gain then shape policy and practice, in terms of the provision of nutrition in our schools and education facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Whittle. That is appreciated. I would like also just to indicate, when we look at the nutrition status of, I see I'm back in the room. If I look at the nutrition status of the children in South Africa, we are aware that there's a lot of disadvantaged communities out there. And in today's session, we try to get presentations from more than one province to indicate to us how the different provinces are faring when it comes to nutrition status. So when we look at the provinces that will give us some indication in this webinar would be Eastern Cape, Free State, Mpumalanga, and Northwest. Now, our first presenter I'm quite keen to hear from is Professor Salome Kruger, and she will present on the nutrition status of primary school-age children in the Northwest Province. Professor Kriya is a part-time professor in nutrition at the Center of Excellence for Nutrition at the Northwest University in South Africa. She contributes to the available knowledge base on nutrition, body composition, and cardiometabolic health in scientific journals. She's a fellow of the International Union of Nutritional Sciences. So there's a wealth of information. So we look forward, Prof. Kruger, to present to us. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Karina. I will share my screen now, and then I will talk about Northwest Province. Just get there. Yes, thank you for the kind introduction and for this opportunity to share our research. My colleagues from nutrition, Dr. Marianne Wicks, and also Professor Roan Kruger and Professor Andries Monyeki, helped me to put this presentation together. We talked about the early investment in child health, which is essential for optimal health and development of children, so that they can grow to healthy and productive adults, and in this way contribute to the workforce of our country. Just move my... Optimal nutrition in school-age children is important for their physical and mental development, but also to the broad social and economic development in South Africa. So investing in children builds a better future. That was also mentioned by Ms. Molefe. The aim of my presentation will be to summarize recent available information on the nutritional status of primary school-age children in Northwest Province. But I will also include some data from recent systematic reviews on the nutritional status of South African children. Three groups from our university put available research together from 1997 to 2022, and then I will present specific results from a longitudinal study that a multidisciplinary group from our university did in 10 primary schools in the Dr. Kenneth Kunda district of Northwest Province. So from the systematic review, we had three parts of it. The first was the anthropometric nutritional status of South African children. We also published this systematic review in Public Health Nutrition in 2023. So oops, I'm a bit out of the screen here, but it showed that about this stunting, underweight and overweight among primary school children, that there was a wide variation, and in particular in rural areas there were more undernutrition, and in urban areas we saw more overweight and obesity. Can I just move this? So in the national surveys from 1999 to 2012, these were the available data in school-age children, we saw that stunting did not change. It remained fairly high, 13% to 12.5%. Overweight trend showed a trend of an increase, 9.5 to 11.7%. But then our statistician performed for us a meta-regression, and for stunting we could include 25 studies, and if we put all of them together in a statistical analysis, we saw that stunting actually decreased by 3.2% between year 2005 and 2021, and that was a significant decrease. That is really encouraging. For overweight obesity, we had 12 available studies in our pool of data, and we saw no significant change between 2005 and 2019, but we did see a trend of an increase there. We also did a summary of the biochemical nutritional status of South African children. That part of the study was led by Professor Linda Malan. Unfortunately, there were few studies on the primary school age children, and you will see these red circles will show them among the available studies when I show the graphs. Most studies were done in preschool children. But we saw for vitamin A deficiency that there was a steady decline in deficiency prevalence, and the circle here shows the studies in primary school children. So generally a very low prevalence of vitamin A deficiency among primary school age children. Iron deficiency measured by serum ferritin below age-specific cutoff points. We also see a significant decline, but I think one should not be too complacent, because in primary school age children, the deficiency could be as high as almost 20%. So this is still a persisting problem. Zinc deficiency, there were fewer studies, but it showed no change, and zinc deficiency in those available studies was still concerningly high. So vitamin A status improved significantly. Iodine and folate status appeared to be low, particularly among preschool children. There were very few studies in primary school age children. We also looked at the dietary intake of children, and this part of the study was led by Professor Mika Faber and Dr. Marianne Wicks, and they identified the top 10 foods reported to be consumed by primary school age children. Maize meal on top, we know this is our staple for most of the population, followed by bread. But then sugar, also fairly high, and this represents sugar added at the table, so added to maize meal porridge or to tea. Tea was the most frequently consumed drink. Chicken, the most frequently consumed animal source protein food. But look at savory snacks. Savory snacks was actually high up on the list of frequently consumed foods. And this is really not a nutritious food, but I think the wide availability and the low cost make it a really common food that is consumed by primary school children. And this is above fruits and vegetables and above milk. Milk came in at number 10, and also important to show that sugar-sweetened beverages was above milk. It was consumed by more children than milk. If we look at the ranking over time, we saw that bread and rice moved down and maize meal porridge moved up on the list of frequency of intake. That could be due to the economic circumstances in our country. We saw in the systematic review that milk ranked down and sugar-sweetened beverages upwards. So it seems that sugar-sweetened beverages in a way is replacing milk as a drink for school-age children. The high consumption of savory snacks across all age groups, also in rural as well as urban areas, and then that sweets and sugar-sweetened beverages were consumed by really a large proportion of primary school children as well as high school children. Now I will present to you data from the Examine Youth study. That was a longitudinal study performed by a multidisciplinary group from our university in the Kenneth Kaunda district. Those of you who know Northwest Province, that would be the towns of Klerksdorp and Potchefstroom and the schools in the region. So we included 10 schools and we recruited in 2017 healthy children aged 5 to 9 years old, so starting at grade R. And the reason for this age bracket was that we wanted to follow the children 4 years later, and we wanted them to still be in the same school to make follow-up easier. So we followed up in 2021 into 2022 because it took quite a long time to follow up. We measured weight and height, and we calculated the body mass index for HZ scores using the WHO AnthroPlus software so that we can categorize the children as underweight, normal weight, overweight, obese. We determined physical activity, in this case by accelerometry, using the wearable ActiHeart device, and we requested children to wear this device for 5 consecutive days so that we can monitor their physical activity. We use bioelectrical impedance analysis to estimate the body fat percentage and lean mass. And then for dietary intakes for this age group at baseline, it was not possible to do 24-hour recall or food frequency questionnaire because it was not possible to get access to all the large number of parents so that we can have good quality data. So for this study, we developed and validated a questionnaire that focused on particular healthy and unhealthy food groups. We published the development and validation process in Journal of Human Nutrition Dietetics last year. And in this questionnaire, we had 10 groups that I will show in the next slide. And we recorded intake ranging from 0, seldom or never, up to 7 times per week. We sent the questionnaire home because the children were too young to complete it themselves. And we also sent a questionnaire on parental educational status and household income home, and the parents sent it back. Teachers collected it for us so that we could analyze the data. So for statistics, we did the descriptive statistics, and we also looked at changes over time, and we measured changes over time using generalized linear mixed models with adjustment for age and sex of the children. We calculated the exponentiated least squares means at baseline and end, and we compared those using the WALT-T test. The protocol was approved by the Scientific Review Committee of Northwest University, also by the Ethics Committee. Parents and children signed informed consent, and children younger than 7 years signed assent. So this is our participant flow chart for the study. At baseline, we went to 10 schools and we recruited as far as possible representatively from the different age groups, and we ended up with 1,103 children at baseline. But after data collection, we had to exclude some of these due to incomplete data or too much missing data. So we had good baseline data for 950 children from these 10 schools. Then after 4 years, we did the follow-up. Unfortunately, some children withdrew from the study. The parents were no longer willing to participate. Some children relocated. We could not find them in any of the 10 schools. And then some children were enrolled, but they were absent on the day. So we had baseline data for 790 children, except for the food questionnaire, some were not returned. So we had a smaller number there of 672 children. And then the physical activity, as I said, was by Actical, it really took a lot of collaboration from the parents and the children to wear this wearable device for 5 consecutive days. So unfortunately, we had to exclude a lot of these because there was too much missing data, and we only had 172 children at both baseline and follow-up for the physical activity data. Now let's just move this away again. So if we will look at questions a bit later. I see there's a hand raised. We saw that from baseline, at baseline, the BMI Z-score was very close to 0, which represents the 50th percentile. But after 4 years, we saw highly significant increase in the BMI for HZ score and it almost reached plus 0.4. Also in the body fat percentage measured by bioelectric impedance, we saw 25% least squared mean at baseline and 35% at the end. So both increased significantly. And we saw that the prevalence of overweight, I want you to see this, the prevalence of overweight increased from 14.9 to 18.2%, but look at obesity. We had 4.2% obesity, which is close to national average at baseline, but after 4 years, really concerning 14.3% obesity among the children in this study. The moderate and vigorous physical activity measured by accelerometry, that was fairly low, at really disappointingly low at baseline, but even lower, significantly so after follow-up. And this shows that the children spent most of the day awake time in either sedentary or light physical activity, and only there was wide variation. So some children were quite active, but these are the least squares means. The food groups, now you can see which food groups we had in our study. So the 4 healthy groups, fruit, vegetable, milk, unsweetened milk, yogurt, mass, and the meat and protein, the animal source food, and these were the healthy groups, the rest were the unhealthy groups. So meat consumed by children and no change. Also vegetables disappointingly low, also fruit quite low, consumption around 3 times per week, and it did not change. Milk and yogurt at baseline more than 4 days per week, at follow-up less and significantly so. Then among the unhealthy, the salty snacks did not decrease, so it was consistently the lower intake of cake and biscuits, also candy and sweets. Fast food at baseline, almost 2 days, and at follow-up 2 days per week, then that was a significant increase. And then we saw, a bit surprisingly, but you can think of possible reasons, that the sugar-sweetened beverage intake frequency decreased after the baseline in 2017. And then the hot beverages, those are tea and coffee with sugar, that also stayed the same. So if we summarize our findings, we can see that the frequency of sugar-sweetened beverages as well as milk, so one did not replace the other, they both decreased from baseline to end over 4 years. Frequency of fast food increased, moderate vigorous physical activity decreased, and the prevalence of overweight and obesity increased quite markedly. Then we looked at associations between these variables that we measured, And we saw that the vegetable group, if we look at the vegetable group only, and we compare the different categories, we saw a significant difference between the body mass index for HZ score as well as the body fat percentage of those children who ate vegetables daily compared to those who ate vegetables seldom or 0 days per week. And we can see that daily vegetable intake actually resulted in a decrease in body fat percentage of 2.7%, and that was significant over the 4 years. Also a trend of a decrease in the BMI Z score that didn't reach significant, but it was a strong trend. Then also daily intake of milk compared to seldom or never also showed an association with a decrease in BMI Z score that was significant. Daily intake of sugar sweetened beverages compared to 0, seldom or never, was associated with a trend of an increase in. So although in the total group there was a decrease in sugar sweetened beverage frequency, this was not the case. There were still children who had sugar sweetened beverages daily, and those children had a larger increase in body mass index for HZ score, although it didn't reach significance. Then moderate and vigorous physical activity showed a strong negative association with both body mass index for HZ score and the percentage body fat, both highly significant. So now we must think of possible reasons for these changes. First, the role of COVID. So when we planned the study, of course, we didn't know. It took the whole world by surprise. But then after we completed baseline in 2020, that was the start of the COVID pandemic, and it had a huge effect on school-age children because they couldn't go to school and they couldn't participate in sports any longer. Let me just see. And then, so is it possible that COVID could be a contributing factor that almost a third of the children were in the overweight and obesity category at follow-up? And this prevalence, our baseline was closer to the national prevalence, but after follow-up, it was much higher than the national average that's estimated at 12.5%. From our results, we could explain this increase by the decrease in physical activity and also the frequency of sugar sweetened beverage intake among individual children within the group. But yes, we collected baseline before COVID, and the follow-up started later in 2021 when children could go back to school, but all of activities did not resume as before. And then in 2022, it was fairly normal again, but we see a pre and post-COVID situation here. And we know from literature that the abrupt interruption of organized sport, as well as the more screen time at home, I mean, in the beginning, everything was online. So this was associated by decreased physical activity among children globally. And also some global, from other parts of the world, there are publications that show an increased consumption of fast food, snacks, and sugar-sweetened beverage after COVID, during and early after COVID lockdown. Then, did you think about the health promotion levy, the sugar tax? That came after baseline. So it's also possible that the decreased frequency of sugar-sweetened beverage intake among the total group of children, it followed the health promotion levy. So there's a possibility for another factor that could be associated with our results. And we saw this huge increase in overweight and obesity from baseline to end. So people may reason now that the sugar tax helped to decrease sales and intake, but it didn't help to curb obesity. But on the other hand, we saw that within our group, there were still children who had sugar-sweetened beverages every day, and they had a much significantly higher increase, or not significant, but a strong trend of an increase in body mass index for age Z-score above those children who had sugar-sweetened beverage seldom or never. And we also know from literature, the sales, that was a study from the WITS group, there was decreased sales of sugar-sweetened beverage after implementation of the health promotion levy. Also concerning is the increased intake of fast foods that we recorded. And we unhealthy food marketing directed at children, it's still ongoing. And there are publications that show that this unhealthy marketing contributes to a lifelong preference for such food, a loyalty to specific fast foods, and it also influences family food purchases, like the pressure from children on mothers what to buy. So there were several calls on the regulation of marketing of unhealthy food to children, that it should be mandatory, it should be monitored, it should be enforced in South Africa, but it's still not the case. And then many studies showed low intakes of fruit and vegetables among South African children, particularly of school-age children. The low physical activity, well, other studies also showed an age-related decline. So it could be just age. Younger children are more playful, and as they get older, they get more interested in their cell phones and social media. So this may be one thing, age-related, but we did adjust for age in our analyses, and we still saw this decrease in physical activity. So I cite here 3 other studies from South Africa that also showed that low physical activity was associated with a body fat percentage, and another study that showed that sedentary time was also associated with a higher body mass. In these 3 studies that I'm citing, they use questionnaires to assess physical activity, while in our study we could, although in a much smaller portion of the children, we showed by objectively determined physical activity over time that it was negatively associated with percentage body fat. What are the implications of the increased obesity? So maybe the children will outgrow the baby fat, but we also saw studies that show it's not the case, that children who are in the overweight category at a young age, they are still in the same category at an older age and even into young adulthood. So here was a systematic review of studies done in Africa, and they look at hypertension. They managed to include 41 studies over 52,000 children, and the studies published 2017 to 2020, and those studies showed a poor prevalence of hypertension at 7.5%, which is high for children. And they showed that children living with overweight and obesity had a significantly higher prevalence of hypertension at 18.5% compared to only 1% in those who are normal or underweight. They also looked at a previous systematic review from Africa, and it showed that before 2017, the prevalence of hypertension was 5.5, and now it increased to 7.5. So it seems to be an increasing trend, and this is not good news for cardiovascular health of children as they grow older. So to conclude, from our evidence, primary school age children gained weight and body fat over 4 years. They should gain weight because they are growing, but disproportionately to their height. Sugar sweetened beverage and low physical activity were associated with increased adiposity. We saw that vegetable intake daily was associated with lower adiposity. Milk intake daily also associated with lower adiposity, and then a very strong association between higher physical activity and lower adiposity in the children. So enabling and safe environments with acceptable access to moderate and vigorous physical activity opportunities, and also strategies to increase vegetable and milk intakes require further attention. We thank you for listening. We also acknowledge funding from the National Research Foundation for the Examine You study. And also just a disclaimer, these are our own conclusions and opinions, and not that of the National Research Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Kruger. That was very interesting and also concerning, but it's also in line with the Department of Basic Education with the National School Nutrition Program, where we try also to regulate our tuck shop environment to reduce the sugar-sweetened beverages and the high-processed food. But this was a very interesting presentation. Please also look at the chat box if you have any questions, and Prof. Kruger will answer the questions in the chat box. Then I want to go to our second speaker, Ms. Angelique Carson-Porter, with the topic Household Dietary Diversity and Nutritional Status of the Preschool Children in Peri-urban and Rural in Free State, South Africa. Now, when we look at Ms. Angelique Carson-Porter, she's been a part-time lecturer in the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics in the Free State University. She holds a master's degree in dietetics from the University of Free State and is currently pursuing a doctorate. She's a registered private practicing dietitian and continues to manage contracts and private business, bringing practical industry experience into the classroom. So we are looking forward to your presentation. Ms. Porter, you can initiate your presentation. We look forward to it.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Karina, for that wonderful introduction. So like Ms. Miller said, my presentation today is about research that was done in peri-urban Free State and rural Free State, and this was actually an undergrad project. This is the content of my presentation this morning. Globally, child malnutrition poses a major threat to disease and development and mortality. Malnutrition can present as overnutrition in the form of overweight and obesity, or undernutrition in the form of stunting and underweight. Worldwide, 22% of children under the age of 5 years are stunted, meaning they are short for their age. 5.6% are overweight, while 6.7% are wasted, meaning that they have a low weight for their height. Child malnutrition is a major problem in South Africa, where almost 22% of children under the age of 5 years are stunted, 2.5% are overweight, while 5.5% are wasted. In South Africa, it has been reported that low dietary diversity can lead to micronutrient deficiencies and stunting among preschool children. This can be prevented if a child receives a diet that includes diverse and safe foods during early childhood. The School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences initiated a community-based education program at ECDs in Bloemfontein and Transburg. An ECD is an early childhood development center, such as a preschool or a creche. This was an interdisciplinary project that involved the School of Nursing as well as the Department of Linguistics and Language Practices. For the purpose of this presentation, I'll be reporting on baseline data collected during 2022 up to February of 2024. Therefore, the aim of the study was to describe the dietary diversity and nutritional status of children in Mangaung and Kopanong in the Free State. The objectives were to describe the socio-demographics, dietary diversity, and nutritional status of the children in these specified locations. Methodology. An observational descriptive study was conducted. The study population consisted of primary caregivers and children aged 6 months to 5 years who regularly attend ECD centers in Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, a peri-urban area, and Kopanong Local Municipality in the Southern Free State, a rural area as seen in the map. There were 10 ECDs in total, of which 6 were from Mangaung and 4 from Kopanong. For this study, convenience sampling was used. These are the inclusion and exclusion criteria of the study. Children with disabilities that affected their feeding practices were excluded. Data collection was done from 2022 up to February of 2024. The data was collected by trained first-year students in private settings at the ECD centers. It involves questionnaires and structured face-to-face interviews with primary caregivers who were asked for socio-demographic information and a 24-hour dietary recall to assess household dietary diversity. The children's weight and height were also measured. Dietary diversity is defined as the number of different food groups or foods consumed in a given period. Household dietary diversity was scored based on the 24-hour dietary recall, and then this was classified as low, medium, or high. A high dietary diversity among children can ensure adequate energy and protein intake and prevent micronutrient deficiencies. This can lead to positive health outcomes like a decreased risk of stunting, as well as lower the risk for developing non-communicable diseases later in life. The current weight and height of the children were measured according to standardized methods. The children had minimal clothing and no shoes during both measurements. The Department of Biostatistics conducted the statistical analysis. To ensure validity and reliability of the results, the equipment used was calibrated. The participants were positioned correctly, and training was given to the data collectors as well as the data entry that was verified. A pilot study was also conducted at selected ECD centers, which was scheduled and then included in the results. The Free State Department of Social Development and the University of the Free State, HS-RED Committee, granted permission to conduct the study. Written informed consent was obtained in the primary caregiver's language of choice, which indicated the purpose of the study, and confidentiality was ensured with no benefits to the participants. 249 primary caregivers answered the questionnaire. However, some questionnaires had missing data, and therefore differences in sample sizes may be seen in the results. The following socio-demographic information was collected from the primary caregivers. As seen in the chart, 2/3 of the primary caregivers were from peri-urban Bloemfontein. Most of the households in both Bloemfontein and Johannesburg had only one child, and less than 1% had a maximum of 6 children. Over 90% of the caregivers had access to healthcare. The healthcare system in South Africa is burdened. A study conducted in the Eastern Cape emphasized the lack of infrastructure and healthcare facilities, which may cause access to healthcare difficult for the rural population. Positively, most caregivers had access to healthcare in our study. Nearly half of the caregivers who participated in the study were single. Most of them completed matric, but about 10% graduated from university. Despite their high level of education, 59.9% of them were unemployed. This graph illustrates that nearly a quarter of the caregivers had less than 2,000 Rand per month, although most households had multiple income streams from multiple household members. Here you can see the majority of the caregivers relied on child support grants, which were also factored into the monthly total income. Most children had a medium dietary diversity. Previous studies noted that when primary caregivers have access to child support grants, it positively influences their children's dietary diversity and nutritional status because it allows them to afford a more varied diet. Most of the participants in this study relied on child support grants, which may contribute to the medium to high dietary diversity among the children included in the study. This suggests that when primary caregivers have access to a child support grant, it can positively influence the dietary diversity and nutritional status of their children. This graph shows that although most children have a medium dietary diversity, their diets are low in vegetables, fruit, dairy, and legumes, putting them at risk for developing micronutrient deficiencies and not consuming enough fiber. In a study done among preschool children in the Northwest Province of South Africa, it was found that their consumption of fruit, vegetables, and eggs was low. This trend is similar to what we found in this study, as most participants did not report consuming fruit, vegetables, and eggs. The anthropometry data was collected from children aged 4 and 5 years old. 1.8% of the children were stunted. Comparing the two genders showed that only the females were stunted. Most children had a normal weight for their height. However, this chart showed that some children were obese and overweight. Unlike before, there is a rise in obesity and overweight among children. This graph shows that the males were overweight, whereas the females were obese. So although the children in the study appear to be healthy due to their normal nutritional status and medium dietary diversity, there is a rise in overweight and obesity among them. In addition to their diets lacking in micronutrient and fiber-rich foods, this puts them at risk of developing non-communicable diseases and certain cancers later in life. This will further contribute to the global burden of malnutrition that was mentioned in the introduction. There were some limitations to the study. Some of the questionnaires had missing data. Secondly, although the children aged 6 to 5 years were included in the study, only anthropometry was measured on children 4 and 5 years old. At the date of data analysis, anthropometrical data is thus only for 55 children. In conclusion, this study revealed a high reliance on child support grants in rural and peri-urban areas in the Free State, highlighting the importance of school feeding programs in these communities. Furthermore, it showed that most children had a normal nutrition status, suggesting a positive impact of child support grants in these communities. Child support grants and school feeding programs seem to have a positive effect on child dietary diversity scores, since most of the children had medium dietary diversity. However, their diets were low in vegetables, fruit, dairy products, and legumes. This dietary diversity is thus adequate in terms of the number of food groups, but the quality of their diet is compromised since it lacks fiber and micronutrients, which are important for growth and well-being. Unemployment rates were high and total monthly household income was low, which further highlights the need for intervention programs like child support grants and school feeding programs to assist with ensuring the health of children in low-income households. Therefore, based on the results and implications reported in this study, a number of recommendations for future interventions are encouraged. Firstly, nutrition education should be provided to caregivers and ECD facilitators regarding the importance of a diet full of diverse food groups, especially including more vegetables, fruit, dairy, and legumes. ECDs should be encouraged to use food ration scales as a tool to ensure children receive a meal that meets their diverse nutrient needs. Furthermore, nutrition intervention should focus on preventing the increase in overweight and obesity among children. Lastly, we recommend further data analysis comparing the sociodemographics, dietary diversity, and nutritional status of Bloemfontein to Tromsburg. We would like to acknowledge the following. These are my references, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelique. I think that study also shows us that there's concerns in the nutrient intake of the young population of the preschoolers, and I think there's still a lot of value in adding nutrition feeding programs to the ECD centers, and like you say, do ration scales to make sure that there's an increase in vegetable and fruit intake. And it really is concerning that even at a young age that we already see the patterns of obesity rising. Now I also want to go to our third speaker, which is Dr. Eridiyong Onyenbeaku, and her topic is the effect of in-school breakfast program on the nutritional status of learners in Mpumalanga, a baseline study. Now, Dr. Eridiyong Onyenbeaku is a public health nutritionist with research interest in human nutrition and food science. She is a senior postdoctoral research fellow with Food Evolution and Research Lab, the FOL, at the UJ, and she holds a PhD in nutrition and food science and belongs to the the Nutrition Society of Nigeria, American Society of Nutrition, and is also an alumnus of the African Nutrition Leadership Program. She is a young researcher and passionate lecturer who is committed to adding value to the lives of people. Dr. Eridiyong, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. I'm just about to share my slides now, just a minute. Thank you to the presenters that have already presented. A whole lot of information has already gone out. I will be presenting on, just a minute, let me put it on slideshow, just a minute here.
Dr. Eridiyong, sorry to interrupt while we wait for your slides. I just want to indicate for the audience, also post your questions in the question and answer block. It seems like in the chat box, not everybody can see. So please, some of the questions to the question and answer block for the presenters to answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I am with the Food Evolution Research Laboratory, University of Johannesburg, and I'll be presenting on the effect of in-school breakfast program on the nutritional status of learners in Mpumalanga province. So this is like a brief overview of what we will be looking at. Thank you, Prof. Kruger, for the overall background information you have given regarding the nutritional status of children in South Africa. So, I mean, not go into too much details, but let me just run through a few things. Despite the significant strides that have been made in the past in improving child nutrition in several countries, malnutrition rates, malnutrition rates such as stunting remain quite high. So it has become beneficial for government and stakeholders to put in place cost-effective strategies aimed at preventing and combating child malnutrition due to the fact that optimal nutrition is a prerequisite for proper growth and development, like we all know. Just skip something. Yeah. And then we have the we have the data, we have the statistics, the issues with stunting. South Africa is characterized by a double burden of nutrition-related health problems, that is undernutrition and overnutrition, which is obesity. And there is evidence of micronutrient deficiency in South Africa. 43.6% of children surveyed in 2012 were vitamin A deficient. And we also saw from Prof. Kruger's presentation that that figure is declining, and we believe it's getting better. She showed us some statistics for vitamin A, iron, and zinc deficiency. The world faces serious difficulties related to hunger and malnutrition, which have severely impacted children's health and development. During a child's formative age or years, access to adequate food and nutrition is key for proper growth and well-being. SDG 2 includes a commitment to end hunger by 2030, highlighting the important role that good nutrition plays in the life of children. Okay, and then the second presenter also talked about the use of anthropometry. So in nutritional assessment, we have direct methods and indirect methods for assessing a person's nutritional status, but we used anthropometry. Nutritional assessment is a proven way of evaluating the effectiveness of nutritional interventions. So anthropometry is one of the direct methods for assessing nutritional status, and it is quite cheap. It is easy to conduct. It doesn't need excessive training, like skilled staff, when compared to biochemical methods. I mean, when you have to do laboratory tests and all that. So anthropometry is cheap and it's easy to use. Measurements such as height and weight can also be combined with age to give anthropometric indices, which can indicate stunting, wasting, or underweight among children when compared against standards. We used MUAC, that's the mid upper arm circumference, and we calculated the body mass index of the children. So the aim of our study was to evaluate the TBF breakfast program at primary schools in Mpumalanga province using interviews and observational checklists. Yeah, so we used both interviews and we also had a checklist because we went and we observed how the foods were being prepared, how they were served, and all that, if there were a lot of plate waste or not. So we had a checklist that we used. And then the second aim was to assess the nutritional status and growth of the learners over time using anthropometric methods such as BMI and MUAC, which is the MUAC. So ours was a longitudinal study. Okay, so it's shown in the specific objectives here. It was a longitudinal study. We had the first phase, the initial phase in March last year, March 2024. We had the second phase, mid-phase in June. We had to start in March because that's when we were able to get the whole ethics thing. So we would have preferred to start earlier, but we couldn't. So we started in March, and then the second was in June, and the last phase was in November 2024. Our specific objectives included to document the trend of the children's growth and nutritional status, to see the impact of the in-school breakfast program on the well-being of learners. Also, we wanted to understand from the perspective of learners how they like the various breakfast menus using questionnaires and focus group discussions. We also intended to gather feedback from learners regarding their opinions about the breakfast program and invite their suggestions for improvements to assess the level of adherence to the TBF menu, the Tiger Brands breakfast menu, by the volunteer food handlers and their hygiene practices. And then you needed to make recommendations regarding changes or additions that could improve the breakfast meals to better meet children's needs. Okay, I can skip that. Yeah. Our methodology. The study was conducted at primary schools in the Hazy View district of Mpumalanga province, and the schools were selected from a list provided by TVF. All schools had breakfast and lunch programs as part of the NSMP in-school nutrition program. Like I said, data was collected in 3 phases: March, June, and November. We had to work within the time frame that we were given, because we would have loved it to span maybe into another year or two. So mixed methods were used. So we used nutritional assessments, which was quantitative, and then for the interviews were qualitative. And then a child-centered qualitative approach was considered suitable as it involves participatory methods such as interviews and focus group discussions, because we wanted to really get quality data from the children, the learners who were our participants. I can skip other ones. Okay, so we calculated our sample size and we came to 371 participants. This just shows the distribution. We got 47 in some schools, 46 participants in the different schools that we surveyed. We had 8 of them: Kelani Primary School, Kobaneni, Chweni, Flunala, I know this name was difficult then, and then Siamukela, Ifaletu, Timba, and Punzana. They were all the primary schools we surveyed, and our total sample size was 371. Data was transcribed and quality controlled, and then the focus group discussions were thematically analyzed using an inductive approach on the Atlas TI software. Okay, to our findings now, so that I don't take too much time looking at my time. To our findings, this is the table showing the social demographic characteristics of participants for phase 1, 2, and 3. So here we have phase 1 and then phase 2. Phase 2 was in June and phase 3 was in November. We followed through with the same set of children. I think maybe there were just 2 or 3 dropouts. I can't really remember, but we were quite consistent. We worked with the same group of children so that we could follow up their growth over time. All the learners and their teachers really appreciated the breakfast meals, I must say, saying that it keeps them strong and healthy. The following were the reasons the learners gave for desiring to get breakfast in school. So the learners gave their reasons for liking in-school nutrition and the breakfast. A large number of them said they do not have or they do not get food at home, probably due to financial reasons or the fact that they hurry off in the morning. So that was a major reason, followed by the fact that they believed the food was healthy and nutritious and was good for them. And then some of them said it tastes and smells good and is delicious. Among the breakfast meals offered, jungle oats was the most favorite breakfast meal at school, because 55 or almost 56% of the learners indicated that that was their favorite meal, followed by Morvite, which was 24%. And then the least liked was Mabele, 3%. The most preferred flavors, their meals come in flavors, was banana. We really wanted to know what the children like and what they would like to change. So the most preferred flavor was banana, both in the ACE instant and the Morvite. The most disliked breakfast meal on school breakfast menu was Mabele. 42.5% said they didn't like it, followed by Morvite. When asked why, 35% of the participants said that it makes them feel sick. Like they would say some of them would actually throw out or throw up or vomit. Yeah. Another 25% said that they don't like the taste, smell, texture, or appearance of that particular food. Okay, this slide shows their preferences, because we asked them what kind of food do they enjoy most? Is it food in school or food at home? And up to 63% of the participants said that they liked food prepared at school, while only 34% said they preferred the food prepared at home. And I think 2.7% down there, the green one, said they prefer both food in school and food at home. This slide shows the impact that the breakfast program had on the learners. So this big one shows whether they said yes, that it had positive impact on them, and then the other ones, 16% said no. So from the 83% who said yes, that they noticed that the breakfast has had positive impact on them, about 19.6% said that they feel more energetic, because we had to probe for particular reasons why they think that the breakfast is having a positive impact on them. So almost 20% said it makes them feel more energetic. Another 15% said it makes them feel stronger. Some said it makes them feel happier. Some said they've actually gained weight, which we should expect from growing children if they're growing well. Some even said they have grown taller. So those were some of the reasons the children said they believe the breakfast was good for them. This slide shows learners' general perception of the breakfast program. So here we just brought out some direct quotes from what the learners were saying about the breakfast. So some will say it gives us energy. We are more active to play. Children like to play. Yeah, they play while learning and they learn while playing. So some said I can focus in class. They give us energy to write. Yeah, that's important. So they are able to focus in school after they've had their breakfast meals. In the morning, the schools serve them the breakfast, usually between around 7:30. Before 8, they're already in class because we went to observe early in the schools. Some said it's delicious, some said it's tasty, they are nutritious, they make us healthy. So those were the voices of the children. Overall assessment of the breakfast program using the observational checklist. Table 13 in the detailed report shows the findings made at the 8 schools in phase 1, 2, and 3 using the observational checklist. In the various schools, breakfast was consistently served. This is a summary of what is in table 13. Breakfast was consistently served on time and in good hygienic conditions across all 3 phases. They would make the children wash their hands before meals. Yeah, the volunteer food handlers were doing well. And the TBF menu was also followed. All participants agreed that breakfast meals included various food groups with no negative responses in any phase. Food handlers followed the agreed menu. They all had the TBF menu. When we go into the kitchens, that's the first thing we would look out for. There's the menu there, and they were serving according to what was up for each day. Correct portion sizes were served in phase 1 and 2, but slightly decreased in phase 3 due to variation in the numbers of learners consuming the breakfast. The analysis of the health checklist showed that the learners appeared healthy and active with no negative feedback in this area. The children were running up and down, they were very active, they were very participative in the school activities from what we saw. Most of the learners were satisfied with the breakfast, though this declined slightly from 87.5% in phase 1 and 2 to 75% in phase 3. A few learners expressed satisfaction of some of the breakfast items. Yeah, children will always like certain things and not like certain things. And then for the qualitative approach, this was the this is the quantitative approach, sorry. In each school, 46 to 47 learners participated in the study. Their weights and height were taken, and then their BMI was calculated. And then we also used the MWAC tape to document and mark over the 3 phases. And then the mean values were calculated for males and females, and the results were compared with WHO standards, BMI for age, and MWAC cutoffs for children aged 10 to 14 years. The study was piloted in 2 schools in Gauteng before we commenced the study, and then the statistical analysis is down there. Let me rush because I am looking at my time. The MWAC classifications and recommended actions for children 10 to 14 years are here. So if the measurement falls in the red zone of the MWAC tape, it means it's less than 16 cm. It indicated severe acute malnutrition, and that's necessary action. The child should be referred to the nearest health facility that provides therapeutic feeding. And if it fell in the yellow zone, 16 to 18 centimeters, that's moderate acute malnutrition. We call it the danger zone. In some tapes, it could be orange. In some tapes, it could be yellow. Then the green is anything above 18 cm, healthy. So they are advised to continue with healthy dietary and lifestyle habits and go for regular checkups. This was adapted from WHO 2008. So this is what was used for the children 10 to 14 because that was the age range of the children we were working with. And the results for the anthropometric data across the phases show that growth from phase 1 to 2 and 3 was consistent. From these here, you can see the mean heights and the mean weights and then the mean BMI. So the blue is for the males and the orange is for the females. And then the mean MWAC, this is the only one that in phase 3 came down slightly. However, the MWAC did not exhibit any growth during this period for either gender, for both males and females. Additionally, the growth in anthropometric measurements was more pronounced among female participants compared to male participants. That could also be due to, the females are in puberty. During that time, there's a lot of changes in their body. Among male participants, the prevalence of severe thinness, which is underweight, remained consistent at approximately 1%, which was very low, quite negligible in all the 3 phases. The prevalence of overweight increased from 16.2% in phase 1 to 19.3% in phase 2, and then to 20.2% in phase 3, similar to what the other presenters reported. But yeah, it's something we can look at. And the trends in the nutritional status of the learners is just, this table is just showing the prevalence of severe thinness, normal weight, because that's how the BMI classifies them, and then overweight and obese. So we had 74% of the males in normal weight in phase 1, and then 65.2% in phase 3. And then for the females in normal weight, we had 69.5% normal weight, and then 68.3% in the final phase. In conclusion, the breakfast program had positive impact on the learners. They reported that the breakfast program improved their growth, concentration, energy levels, and overall health. And we actually agree because we saw that. It also contributed to better school attendance, punctuality, because they looked forward to coming to school because they knew that there was breakfast there. So they would come to school on time to make sure they met breakfast. And then it also improved their physical and cognitive development. The anthropometric results indicated good nutritional status with remarkable longitudinal growth being observed. However, mean MWAC showed a slight decrease, likely due to rapid growth-related fat loss, muscle mass, but it remained well within the healthy range. It was still within the healthy range. It didn't come down low to underweight, so it's not a cause for worry. The learners also asserted that the meals improved their concentration in class and improved their academic performance. And then when it comes to the preferences and their dislikes, while learners appreciated the meals, they expressed strong dislike for certain items like mabele and Morvite, suggesting replacements like Weet-Bix and cornflakes. Children will always be children. Yeah, and then recommendations for improvement. The learners themselves proposed increasing portion sizes and changing flavors, particularly for Ace Instant Porridge Original. That one wasn't liked at all. At least they would like the banana one a bit, to make meals more enjoyable and to reduce food waste. So in summary, here are our recommendations. I'll just pick a few of them. There may be need to serve learners according to their ages and their nutritional needs. This will ensure that the learners are satisfied and may prevent any form of wastage due to inability of the younger ones to consume as much as the older ones. And then fruits were only provided once a week, and that was for lunch. That's the NSNP. Hence, an increase in the frequency and supply of fresh fruits should be incorporated into the menus. This will improve their micronutrient intake because we know that fruits and vegetables are rich in micronutrients which children need. They need a lot of it, the B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin A. Nutrition education for learners should be added to the syllabus, make them know the importance of healthy eating, and then where possible, eggs and milk should be incorporated into the menu. We know that this may be difficult due to financial reasons, but this is highly recommended because it will boost their protein supply. And we also recommend the cultivation of school gardens, because they said there were school gardens before, but for some reason, many of the schools no longer have school gardens, because this would increase the availability of fresh fruits, vegetables, herbs, contributing to more nutritious and flavorful meals for learners. So we would like that to be revived so that they can learn about agriculture, they can participate in planting fruits and vegetables, and it would now be available for them to consume. So yeah, those are some of our recommendations. Further training of the volunteer food handlers in portion serving, food preparation skills, because there's a way you prepare food and it's appealing, and there's a way you prepare it and the children may not really like it. Also, there's a need for equipment. Yeah, if possible, fridges. So these are my references, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for paying attention. I look forward to receiving any questions on this. At this point, I would like to acknowledge the funding organizations, Tiger Brands Foundation and Star Foundation, and our learners. They were very active participants, even the staff at the school, the coordinator for Mpumalanga. They were also helpful in the study. So we acknowledge them, and the amazing FEL team and our wonderful director at the Food Evolution Research Lab, Dr. Hema Kesa. Thank you to you all. I would end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eddie de Jong. It's good to hear that the learners enjoy their breakfast. It is a dream for the NSNP, and I'm sure for the foundation, Tiger Brands Foundation, to include milk, to increase the protein, but it's one of our challenges when it comes to funding, but it was a good presentation. I see in the chat box, there's a long comment from Nomfundo. I just want to say, I like what you say, that nutrition is not only to be promoted in the school environment, but a multi-stakeholder approach should be used, and also incorporate the school community as well as parents. And this for us is important. It's just sometimes difficult to reach all the stakeholders and to promote good nutrition. But thank you for the comment. I think it's valuable. Then for our last speaker, Ms. Helen Donkin, we look forward to hear from you. Your topic, growth monitoring in early childhood development centers, using simple tools to track and respond to malnutrition in the Eastern Cape. So this is our second presentation for the ECD environment. With Helen, Ms. Donkin is a registered dietitian with 10 years experience in maternal, infant and child health and nutrition. She spent 3 years with the Eastern Cape Department of Health and a further 3 years with the Scottish National Health Service before completing her master's degree in public health at the University of Edinburgh. Her work has primarily focused on improving nutrition for children. For the past 2.5 years, she has contributed to the 0 to 5 Trust mission with a focus to preventing stunting and improving the nutritional status of children in rural and marginalized communities. Thank you, Helen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you to all the other presenters who went before me. I think we all got a really good view of where our South African children are at with their nutritional status. I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. I hope you can see my screen. Right. So, first of all, thank you so much for the Department of Basic Education for inviting me to present here today. And then for hosting us, the Tiger Brands Foundation and University of Johannesburg. I think this is a wonderful series and I look forward to the other webinars. Right, so my topic today is growth monitoring in ECD centers, using simple tools to track and respond to malnutrition. Yes, we will get into that. So this project is called Kula Nathi, and this is for the 0 to 5 Trust. We are an NPO. Here's just a bit of contents, which I will discuss today, the background, the Kula Nathi project, the project activities, and then we get into the nutritional status of children in the Winnie Madikizela Mandela municipality, and then our impact. So a bit of background about us. 0 to 5 was established in 2014, so we had big 10-year celebrations last year. We have 3 main programs that you can see on the screen there. So the first is Nutrition and Wash, second is Play and Learn, and number 3 is ECD registration and support. We really do focus a lot on the Nutrition and Wash. This is that was our first program, and we've expanded over the years. We reach out to 5 local municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal and 1 in Alfred Nzo in the Eastern Cape. So our background, our growth monitoring and promotion work started in uThukela in 2017. Then our nutrition program expanded into the Eastern Cape in January 2019. And our Kula Nathi pilot commenced in January 2020 with 8 ECD sites in the Alfred Nzo district in the Eastern Cape. And this was with the Muakba Moms program at the Imizizi Clinic. And we had an MOU with DOH since May 2023 for our Kula Nathi project. And there's a photo of some of our team members. We have grown a bit over the last few years. And then just to put our work into context, we focus on having a rural impact. So our nutrition program in KZN serves 163 ECD centers, and you can see that on the bottom photo. I see it's a bit blurry, but all those dots represent ECD centers where we work. So on the far right, we have the King Cetshwayo district, and then up here around Ladysmith and Escort, we've got the uThukela district up into the Drakensberg. So it's really rural areas, some of it's very remote. The top map shows the Eastern Cape, the Winnie Madikizela Mandela municipality within the Alfred Nzo district. And all those dots represent ECD centers. So our nutrition program focuses on, firstly, nutrition support. So we've become experts at feeding at ECD centers. We provide 50 grams of fortified breakfast and 3 cooked lunches per week to over 11,000 children. So we're quite good at logistics by this stage. And our Kula Nathi project is also involved with 53 ECD centers in KZN. So what does our Nutrition and Wash program really entail? So we do a lot of training with our ECD practitioners, and we provide a lot of equipment and resources to them to enact on this training. So we talk about food safety, food preparation, and portion sizes. And we know how important WASH is, so that's water, sanitation, and hygiene. With improved water and sanitation, we know that that's a protective factor to reduce malnutrition. So that's why we focus on that. And then we have another big project on the go where we are developing an ECD menu for funded and unfunded centers. So there's been a lot of chat around ECD menus and by the other presenters, and I was thinking, oh, should we not just have one menu for everyone? But we have found that you need to be context specific with your menu. You need to be sensitive to the cultural needs of the population. So Our project on this menu provides a practical, costed 2-week menu for ECD centres to support the delivery of nutritious meals to children from 9 months to 6 years. The menu is aligned with the national ECD guidelines, and it reflects real-world affordability by using food items tracked in the Household Affordability Index that's put out by the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Forum. Go have a look at their work. It's really frightening to see how our food cost has increased over the last few years. And tracking these items in our menu, tracking them on the Household Affordability Index, enables accurate and ongoing cost monitoring and supports a retrospective price comparison. And so by calculating the actual monthly cost of providing these meals to a typical ECD population, the project generates credible evidence to inform budget planning, subsidy adjustments, and policy development. It offers a clear picture of the nutritional gap between current funding levels and the cost of adequate nutrition, strengthening the case for increased investment in early childhood nutrition as a foundation for long-term health, learning, and equity. Okay, so that's a long bit about our menu, but I think it's very important to us that it's an important project for us. It's very close to our hearts. We really want to curate a menu for our ECD practitioners that they feel empowered, that they know that they can feed these children in ECD centres. So part of this menu is we are developing a grocery shopping list for the funded centres. So we base it on 20 children per centre, and then we show them how to calculate it to be more or less. And this helps them shop appropriately for children to spend that R8.50 nutrition allocation that's part of the ECD subsidy coming from government. And we are also exploring bulk shopping for ECD centres in located clusters, connecting local ECD practitioners and vendors to see if there's any option for bulk shopping. Okay, next slide. Sorry. So here's an introduction to our Khula Nathi project. So Khula Nathi means grow with us in isiXhosa because our project was based in the Eastern Cape. And we base this project on nutrition hubs. We believe that the ECD Centre is a nutrition hub in the community and they can screen for malnutrition. This project was prompted by our previous growth monitoring work in uThukela, where we targeted the most vulnerable communities. So we have partnered with the Eastern Cape Department of Health, and great thanks to them. And then it was funded by the DG Murray Trust, also a huge thank you to them. And this project is running from 2023 to 2025. So we're in the last 6 or 7 months of the project now. Right, so ECD centres should include nutritious meals. There's been lots of mention about what is a nutritious meal, what do children prefer, what should it look like for them. They should be able to provide nutritional screening and growth monitoring and promotion because these children do not regularly attend clinics. Oopsie, why did that jump? They don't regularly attend clinics, so we need to catch them where they are in the community. And then part of this needs to be nutrition education. I think we've all mentioned, yeah, our children have their wants and preferences, but if we can educate them that, you know, fruits are healthy for you, it makes you learn better, you know, chicken is good for you, it makes you grow stronger muscles, and then you can run faster. You know, if we bring it back to children like that, I think it can have a great impact. Okay, just for a bit of context, the Khula Nathi project is set in the Alfred Nzo district in the Eastern Cape. It's one of the poorest districts in the Eastern Cape and in South Africa. 71.5% of people live below the lower poverty line. There's huge reliance on child support grants and other social grants. There are over 42,000 children in Bizana, which is the main town in the area. 33% of children live with neither of their parents, so they are with other caregivers, often Ogogo. There's huge unemployment in the area, and even those who do earn have very low income. And it's a rural area, as you can see from these photos. It's a tribal traditional area. There is some subsistence farming, but as you can see, it's not huge areas. That's some mealie fields that have been harvested. Okay, and to frame the data for you here, I think it's very important for me to mention that this is not a scientific study. So we are an NPO and we implemented a project because we want to see real change for these children. And so I did not structure this in the typical research methodology, even though if you have any questions, please ask me afterwards. But I didn't want to do that to make it clear that this is not a research study, but we are reporting on our results that we collected during this project. So the sample includes 3,956 children. They all attend an early childhood development center, and most of them are from low-income households. But it's important to note that even for a low-income household, the household have the resources to send this child to an early learning program or an ECD center. So they are not the poorest of the poor or the most vulnerable in the community. We focus on ages 1 to 5 years, and we got informed consent from all parents or caregivers for all children who participated. We made sure we had ethical data collection processes in place. I'll speak a bit more about that just now. But it's also important to note we had a high rate of attrition or turnover. So, you know, things happen in these communities and in these families that the child will attend at the school for a few terms or a few months, and then they don't attend for the rest of the year. So when we would like to do our follow-up, the child's no longer there. And because this was not a strict research study, anyone in the center who provided informed consent, we were very happy to include them in the project. All right, so the aim of Culinati is to reduce malnutrition for children under the age of 5 through the early detection and referral of malnutrition through nutrition surveillance at ECD centers with easy-to-use anthropometric tools. We want to train a new cadre as growth monitoring and promotion workers. We want to establish an early warning system for malnutrition, and we want to strengthen the referral and follow-up by establishing bi-directional communication between ECD center and the primary healthcare facilities. Okay, I'm going to give you a short overview of our project activities, and then we can dive into the nutritional status of the children after that. So there's quite a few elements to our project. The first one is nutrition support. I spoke at length about that. We provide porridge, we provide training, we provide bowls and spoons because these children don't have any. We make sure they get a nutritious lunch at least 3 times a week. Then we support and empower practitioners to know what to purchase with the money available to them. We help them budget so they know what healthy foods can they provide for children. I always say if you've got enough money for 2 cabbages, rather buy a cabbage and a bag of carrots, because then at least you're introducing some variety and some other nutrients, just as an example. Okay, then we want to equip and empower them with anthropometric tools and skills. We build capacity by training and transferring skills. And then we have the growth monitoring and promotion and screening of nutritional status. Then we have referral to the primary healthcare facility. We monitor the referral outcomes. And then we have incorporated a digital solution. So I will touch on a few of these points. First and most exciting for us is 0 to 5 have developed a height tool for screening. So you can see it in the pictures there. We put it up against the wall, and it's a normal height tool with centimeters and millimeters on it, but it incorporates height for age. So there are age bubbles all along the measurements on the boys' side, which is blue, and the girls' side, which is pink. And these lines represent the -2 standard deviation on the WHO height for age growth chart. So representing the -2 Z-score. And we know children below that Z-score are possibly stunted. I say possibly stunted because this is a screening tool. We are not making a formal diagnosis. So we train our practitioners to measure the child accurately, and if the measurement is below that child's age, so you find the child's age and you measure them, the measurement is below the age, they're at risk of stunting. If the measurement is above the age, they are most likely of a normal height for age. So that's our height tool that we've developed, and we've installed it in 137 ECD centres and 8 primary healthcare facilities in the Eastern Cape. We also provide them with digital scales and mark tapes, and here you can see some of our measuring in action. Right, then we've incorporated digital support. So with our partner organization Impande, we've developed a customized growth monitoring and promotion form on the Dimaji ComCare app. So the app captures all the demographic information you need for accurate growth monitoring. It also captures the anthropometric measurements, but most excitingly then, it immediately analyzes these measurements by comparing them to the WHO growth chart standards. So you can see here on the right, there's the app provides little smileys for you. So sad smiley, weight for age, this child is underweight, please refer. Height for age, happy smiley, the child's not stunted. And then you can see there's a weight for height smiley as well. So from that analysis, it generates a list of children at risk of malnutrition, and those are the children that need to be referred. Using a digital solution also helps with improved data quality. So you have less human errors in your data collection, which for us has been a real game changer. Okay, we also focused on capacity building. So we do initial on-site training, and then we do mentorship and support and on-site refreshers. So we've trained over 320 stakeholders. So we've trained ECD practitioners from 137 ECD centers, many of them 2 practitioners. We've trained 32 community health workers. We've trained over 20 professionals from Department of Health. And then we've also trained some YES youth and interns that have assisted us in this project. Here's a high-level summary. So, oh, is it running by itself? There we go. We've fed over 6,000 children with a highly fortified porridge. We've supplied them with the easy-to-use anthropometric tools that I discussed. I've already mentioned to you the capacity building and training. Oh gosh, sorry, this slide is running ahead of me. We've measured over 5,800 children. All of those measurements, 3 measurements per child, have been captured on our ComCare app. Over 760 children have been referred, and we have tracked these referrals, and I'll speak a bit more about that just now. Okay, so the nutritional status of children attending ECD centers in the Winnie Madikizela Mandela local municipality who took part in the Kulonati project. So I will report on our results from 2023 up until November 2024. Here is a timeline of our measurements and what I will report on. It's important to note that the ComCare app saves baseline and most recent data. So for any child, you will have 1 baseline measurement and the most recent follow-up. So any child will only have 2 measurements saved, even though they were maybe measured 8 times. So this effectively gives me 2 cross-sectional samples to present to you. And as you can see here, I'm presenting on our measurements that we did twice a year. There were occasions where we measured more, but these were the biggest samples, and I had to choose something. Right, so our baseline demographics, we had 3,956 children with baseline measurements. 51% were male and 49% were female. And you can see here that most of these children were 4 to 5 years old. We don't see a lot of children up to the age of 2 attending ECD centers in these rural areas. That's due to multiple cultural factors. I don't think I have time to go into them, but I'm very happy to expand on that if anyone is interested. And here's the demographics of our follow-up. We had 1,910 children with follow-up measurements, 52% male and 48% female. And we see a similar pattern of attendance where 4 to 5 year olds tend to come to ECD centers. Younger children, you find less of them there. It's important to note here that our baseline sample is almost half. No, our baseline sample is nearly double our follow-up sample. And it might be that some children were repeatedly measured as baseline. And that might be because in a new school year, there's a new class list. It could also be because children move in and out of these centers so often. So a child might come in, have one baseline measurement done, and never measured at follow-up again. Okay, nutritional status. I've discussed the total number of children, so I'm not going to go into that again. And then stunting, which I see we all talk about and we all have high prevalence of. We found 15% stunting in our baseline and about 13% in our follow-up. Severely stunted children were 2.4% baseline and 1.9% follow-up. So I didn't do proper statistical analysis to see if this difference is significant. Time and budget did not allow. But I think if this is a true significant reduction in stunting, it could be due to the nutrition support these children are receiving at ECD centers. We also see that this compares favorably to other studies in the Eastern Cape. Grow Great had a nutrition survey in Mkanduli, where they found 24% stunting. Though that was a home-based survey and ours is ECD-based, so it could be because of the differences in what type of child goes to the ECD center, how does that household and the resources look different. And the Western Cape survey found 17.5% stunting, and that included home-based and ECD-based studies. So Dr. Kate Rich can keep you busy for hours on how it is actually quite difficult to get accurate stunting estimates, but I'm quite confident in our measurements here, not to say that they are true for the entire area, but definitely for our children attending ECD centers, we have seen a slight reduction in stunting rates. Okay. Next, we have underweight and severely underweight. Very low prevalence, as you can see, 2.6% at baseline and 1.9% at follow-up. I put the N numbers there for us to keep in mind that these are real children with real families who have suffered some hardship. So 102 children underweight at baseline and 6 severely underweight, and then 37 at follow-up and 5 severely underweight. And they were all referred appropriately, and I will discuss that. Then we have wasting and severe wasting. Very, very low incidence, 1.1% at baseline and 0.3% at follow-up. That might be due to the smaller sample size, or it might be an improvement. It might also be, as you saw in my timeline, the baseline was taken in May or June, where you might still have some nutritional effects from December and January, because generally in January, February, we see a spike in malnutrition because of financial pressures on families over the festive time. And then our follow-up is in November. It could be that the family has earned more money and recovered by the end of the year. I'm just speculating as to the reason for our results. We didn't do any extra surveys on that, maybe in future. But encouraging to see very low wasting and severe wasting rates. And then going on from that, overweight and obesity, which all of the speakers have mentioned, and I think all of us are quite concerned about. So for overweight, we have 8.1% at baseline and 7.4% at follow-up. And we can see there's a slight higher prevalence among females. And remember, this is very young kids between 1 and 5 years old, and the majority of our population was 4 to 5 years old, which is a very young age for a child to really be overweight. And similar for obese rates, very low, but still slightly higher among females, and in our follow-up, more than double the male rate. So I think this shows us that even though this measurement is below the national average of 3.5% found in rural areas, this rural population still suffers from a triple burden of malnutrition, where we know that the diet's high in energy but low in micronutrients causes stunting and overweight and obesity at the same time. This is something definitely to keep an eye on. And then here's a visual representation of our baseline versus follow-up measurements. So baseline is in orange and follow-up is in green. And we can see here that by far as malnutrition is concerned, stunting is the most concerning, and only second to that, overweight. So we really should not, while we are all very concerned about feeding children, we should always keep this overweight in the back of our minds. And so due to that, I drew up this table comparing height for age Z-score to BMI for age Z-scores. And this was on a small sample. This was from our June 2023 sample. And as we can see, sorry, I got lost there for a second. There's a very low percentage of children that are stunted and overweight and obese. So 0.7% are stunted and overweight, and 0.2% were stunted and obese. But we see that in the category of BMI for age Z-score between +1 and +2, which is your at-risk for overweight category, 4.1% are stunted and both at risk of overweight or obesity. And this is at a very young age, so that could very easily flip over into, children actually being overweight. Right, so here we have our MUAC results. So I just want to point out that even though we had such a large set of data, only 3 children were screened for SAM with a MUAC tape and 1 for MAM. They were both immediately referred to the closest primary healthcare facility. The SAM children were admitted, as is the protocol. But interestingly, when I put this through WHO Anthro, the desktop version, because they still do the MUAC, where the online version does not do MUAC Z-scores, this cohort's MUAC was not a good substitute for detecting overall wasting. So the MUAC tended to be higher than the WHO growth standards. As you can see in the graph, the green line is the WHO standard, and the pink line is for the girls, and the blue line is for the boys. And it's all skewed to the right, so they're all higher than the WHO standards. But when we do the same analysis using BMI for age or weight for height Z-scores, it picks up more children with severe wasting or moderate wasting. So I think in our particular population, MUAC was not very sensitive for that wasting. Okay, so we found all these children with malnutrition, and then what? I always think it's unethical to find them and not do anything about it. So we need to keep in mind that we used screening tools, and a screening tool is never the same as a full nutritional assessment. So we referred all the children we screened positive for potential malnutrition. We referred all of them for assessment and treatment if necessary by a medical professional at the local primary healthcare facility with whom we had built up a relationship. We identified 295 in 2023 to refer, and another 737 in 2024. Some of these children might be repeat referrals, and we need to keep that in mind. But we also saw in implementing this project, we learned a lot, and about a third of referrals were not handed over to the caregiver by the ECD practitioner. So we provided the ECD practitioner with the information they needed. We provided them with also translations of a pre-scripted message that they can use to tell the parent, we're part of the Kulanati project and we measured your child and we are concerned about their growth. Please will you take them to the clinic so that the sister can have a look. That is all we said. We never used the word stunting. We never used the word underweight. And still, many of the ECD practitioners felt that in doing that, it threatened the trust relationship between themselves and the families of the children. And of course, we don't want that trust relationship to suffer at all. So that's an important lesson for us. And then because of that attrition and other reasons of people not going to the clinic, just over 50% did actually attend the primary healthcare clinic if they received a referral. And despite that, we still found pockets of poverty with worse nutritional status. So some ECD centers barely had any malnutrition and others had 25%. And I think that just brings home to us again that malnutrition needs place-based solutions to fight the inequities that people experience because of their geographical location. We need rural and local solutions in context to assist these children. Right, so what has our impact been with this project? We hope to prevent malnutrition with the education we're doing, and that's one of those things that it's hard to measure. But if we can't prevent malnutrition, then at least we want early detection and early treatment, because that reduces morbidity and mortality. We've also found that there's been an increase in learning potential, and we are hoping to impact the long-term consequences of malnutrition, which I'm sure we are all very aware of. Children can reach their full developmental, educational, and economic potential if we just support them in the right ways. Thank you so much. I would like to give credit to our wonderful photographer, Rogan Ward, for all these photos you saw here. And my contact details are on the screen if you want to get in touch with me about anything, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Helen. That was very informative and also very concerning because the malnutrition it shows, it's still rife and it affects the under as well as a bit of the overnutrition in the very young, the 0 or the 1 to 5. I see there's quite a few questions to you. I want to open it just once quickly for all the presenters to maybe, according to the questions in the chat box or the question and answer, if you wanted to make a comment. I think it's relevant just to end off your presentation if you have a comment on any of these questions. I just want to highlight there's also questions on YouTube and we might be struggling to access all of them, so that might not be answered. So I'm not sure if I can go one by one. Prof. Kruger, do you have any comment on some of the questions?
Thanks, Karina. I see there's one question about the follow-up time in our study. Opinion that 4 years is too long. We should have intermediate measurements. What I can respond on is if we do studies in very young infants and children, we do follow up more frequently. We had a study in 6 to 12-month-old infants where we performed our anthropometric measurements every 2 months so that we can see across the spectrum. Among older children, we see that these changes are not so rapid. So we followed evidence from the literature on follow-up time. Also another factor was the budget, because this was a large study and we did many different measurements. So I think if our member who asked the question maybe can advise us on where to find more budget for our projects, we can do more frequent follow-ups. But for this study, 4 years was what we thought would be correct according to literature and other studies with the same aim and in the same age group.
Thank you, Prof. Kruger. Angelique, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Karina. No, not really, but if I can maybe just respond to the the questions posed by Mfundo in the chat. I think we really do need to open up the communication channels, because the intervention programs, they are intervention programs that address the immediate need of malnutrition. But in the greater scheme of things, I think it is much more complex than that when one looks at the food environment. As I answered in the chat, many foods are sold that are not advertised. For example, Vetkoek is never advertised, Kambani is not advertised, Braai plates are not advertised, Mazimbas are not advertised, and yet they are consumed. So, you know, it's looking more at the deep dive into the food environment and trying to promote more healthy foods, but also the concept that these healthy foods should be cheaper than the unhealthy or the counterpart that is available. So yes, I think it will require a lot of engagement and communication, and then also getting the education out there. But also the education shouldn't be despairing the community. It should uplift the community within their means. And you know, yes, we can ask government for more funds for this and for that, but you know, it's not actually the government's responsibility. You know, according to the constitution, everyone has the right to food, but it is the government's responsibility is that so that its citizens are able to obtain food with dignity. So I think those are a lot of things that we need to bear in mind with our education and intervention projects. But thank you all.
Thank you, Angelique. And then Dr. Eddie de Jong, do you have any comment?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I'm actually very impressed by the questions and the comments in the question and answer chat box. I see that people are really interested and concerned about this issue of childhood malnutrition. I'm particularly trying to check one, from Singwayo. He was talking about the need to improve school nutrition policies, and then also the need to create awareness or increase awareness among other stakeholders, especially parents and caregivers, because apart from the in-school nutrition, the children also spend some time at home. What are the parents really feeding these children with? Yes, we know there is the issue of availability and accessibility, but where they have the funds, where they have access to food, what kind of food choices are they making? So there's actually a need for a lot of nutrition education, especially in some of those areas, maybe that may not be too literate. We should be able to bring down nutrition education to the simplest form that they can understand, so that they see the need to offer children healthy choices, because they would only eat what their parents provide, or if they see their parents buy these sugary, salty snacks out there, when they go out there, that's what they would also buy. But if they encourage children to eat more natural foods, fruits, vegetables, by making it available, then that's what we call nutrition education. You are now training them to make voluntary, and of course it will always have a positive impact in the long run on their health and well-being. So that's just what I would like to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Eddie de Jong. And Helen, I don't know if you had enough time. Hopefully this answers have given you some time to look at the questions that were posed to you. If you have anything to say on or answer on the questions.
Yes, thank you, Karina. So there were some questions about breastfeeding and how we educate the ECD practitioners and the caregivers and parents. We use a lot of the side-by-side resources, which is the campaign around the Road to Health book. We also translated the ECD practitioner's guide to the Road to Health book, as well as the community health workers guide. We translated those into isiXhosa and distributed them. So we follow the guidelines that are out there. We don't make any new guidelines because we have wonderful ones available. And then there's a question from Tanya about what interventions did the children who did go for clinic checkups receive? That is a whole 40-minute presentation on its own. But in a nutshell, I want to say the wasted and severely wasted children, the SAMs and the MAMs, were, in my opinion, appropriately and very well treated. They got the treatment they needed. We know that the Eastern Cape often struggles with resource and supplies, so those were occasionally challenges for our population. And then this brings up an issue that I think is quite divisive amongst dietitians, at least at the moment. Our stunted children and our severely stunted children only receive nutrition education at the clinic, even when the professional nurse also diagnosed them as stunting. So this goes back to our formal document on how do we treat stunting at the clinic level. Stunting is not mentioned there. There's many other types of malnutrition, but if stunting is there, it's only mentioned that you give nutrition education. We found that the caregivers that we spoke to, they were very frustrated by this because they were told that their child is not growing well and that it's going to be bad for their development. And then they were told, you know, you need to budget better and you need to work better and find other solutions to feed your child, when these households are already struggling to do that. I think most parents and caregivers are well aware of what's needed to feed a child. And even if they weren't, they're very receptive to nutrition education normally. But we found it was a very tricky thing to manage when the parents were told, well, you just need to feed your child better. But we, as a society, and maybe in that community, there's no other assistance for that. We know the child support grant is not enough. And in this very, very rural area, people live very far from any type of supermarket. And even when you go to the supermarket, there's not always a good variety of fruit and vegetables available at a price that's affordable. So I think that was a real challenge. I don't know how to solve it. If anyone has anything to add there, I'd be all ears. But that's what we found in this project. I also think that's why some parents, you know, parents talk to each other. That's why some people stopped going to the clinic, because they were told, oh, the nurse is not going to give you anything. So, you know, there's that culture of wanting to receive physical goods from the health professional, which doesn't happen for our stunting children. So, yes, that's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. And then a big thank you from us here at the Department of Basic Education for all our esteemed speakers. I think for the audience, the participants, we all can agree we've learned a lot. And we still see that malnutrition is a huge challenge within the country, and that all stakeholders across departments, across the communities have to stay hands to address. It's 4 provinces, and I want to request the UJ, our host, just for a moment to share the QR code for the Nutrition Society of South Africa. There was a glitch right in the morning and we couldn't share, so I would request them, if they can, to share the QR code. So for those people that would be interested to join the Nutrition Society of South Africa, there's lots of information that they share of research studies and other nutrition related matters. Then from my side, I just want also then to thank everybody that participated. I want to also have give an indication that we have now had the first webinar in the series. But we are going to, in September, have our second webinar, and there was lots of mentioning of nutrition education, and nutrition education will be the key heading for the health and well-being for children that we're going to address in our next webinar. So we will keep you all informed. We will share today's the session was recorded, so it will be available. So from our side, thank you very much for all the participants.